everyone, this is Manay and welcome to my Investing 101. You might be wondering, where can I park my emergency fund or where can I actually keep them? And seriously, it can get a little overwhelming trying to decide where can I put my emergency fund. However, here's the thing, it doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, there are actually only a few options that you should consider when looking for a place to keep your emergency fund. However, there is a more important thing. There are actually also places that you should definitely avoid when choosing a place to keep your emergency fund. That's exactly why I decided to have this video. In the rest of this guide, I am going to lay out all the best places where you can actually keep your emergency fund and then dive into the different options that you should definitely avoid at all costs. So if you're tired of all the complicated and looking for the clarity on this very important subject, stick with me. This video is for you. Building and maintaining your emergency fund is one of the most important decisions that you can do for your financial well-being. It provides you with stability, peace of mind in some uncertain times, and gives you protection from any unexpected occurrences. To put simply, your emergency fund is designed for a very specific purpose, and that is to protect your finances in the event that something goes wrong. And because of that, it is very important to put your emergency fund that meets these three basic requirements. The entire point of an emergency fund is to pay for any unexpected expenses. Your money needs to be easily accessible in the form of cash or check. Think of it this way. If your car broke down the next Saturday morning, or if you get sick that Saturday morning, your emergency savings should be in a place that allow you to pay cash for that repair or for that medical expenses in that same afternoon. If your emergency fund doesn't allow you to access to your cash on that same moment, then you should be definitely looking for a different place to keep your emergency fund. If you have the opportunity to keep your money into an account that earns interest, why shouldn't you? Money is money, right? Even if you only earn a few bucks each month, it's nice to see your money grow. Depending on the size of your emergency fund, over time, this could up to hundreds or maybe even thousands of dollars or thousands of pesos of interest solely on interest that you would not have saved otherwise earned. Think about it like this. If your bank charges you for about like 15 bucks or maybe $15 or 15 pesos for your monthly maintenance fee, add it up to a year, it would be costing you $180 or 180 pesos per year. 10 years of that, you would have lost 1800s. Ouch. Avoid fees like a plague. Now that I have mentioned the three basic requirements of where to keep your emergency fund, I also have three places that I will never ever recommend on keeping your emergency fund. Okay, I'm going to start with what I assume to be that the most common account where people stash their emergency fund is their checking account. To be clear, when it comes to our financial life, spending money and budgeting, we cannot give enough praise to our checking account. In fact, we compose our entire budget basing on our checking account, right? However, checking accounts are designed to make money incredibly accessible. In fact, it is very too accessible. And when it comes to emergency fund, too accessible is definitely a recipe for a complete disaster. To put it simply, checking accounts are designed solely for spending, not saving. Also, most checking accounts don't earn any interest, or if there's any, it's only 0.003%, which actually disqualifies them from our list of best places to keep your emergency fund. Finally, of all places to keep your emergency fund, a checking account is the most vulnerable to fraudulent spending. In other words, If somebody gets a hold of your debit card or maybe just your checking account number, they could just like spend all your money in one fell swoop without even realizing it. Now, if that were to happen to you, you can always call your bank or go to your bank, file a dispute, and explain to them what happened. But then, in the interim, you don't have emergency fund available in case of any unexpected scenarios, which is why a checking account on keeping your emergency fund is a very bad idea. Seeing how liquidity is an essential requirement for an emergency fund, keeping your emergency fund in a CD account or a certificate of deposit account is a very terrible option. A CD account or a certificate of deposit account is like a GIC here in Canada or a time deposit account way back in the Philippines. You see, when you set up a CD account, you are agreeing to leave a specific amount of money untouched in your bank account for a set period of time. The problem with this is that it severely limits your access to your money. In fact, if you were to run into an accident if you were to run into a financial emergency during that time period, you would have to take a penalty to take out your money or in order to pull out your money from your CD account. I don't know about you, but the last thing that I want in the middle of an emergency is to have to pay penalties for the money that I set aside for any emergencies. That doesn't make a single sense to me at all. The lack of liquidity alone, you should avoid CD accounts like a plague for any reasons when setting up your emergency fund. I mean, there's no doubt about it that a wise investing is the key to build wealth. However, your emergency fund is not designed or is not meant to build wealth. It is there to be there to protect you in times of emergencies and in times of uncertain times. It is also there to provide you with a quickly accessible financial cushion in the event of any emergencies. Actually, one of the most important roles of your emergency fund is to protect your investments. In other words, by having a large stash of amount set aside waiting for you to protect you in the events of an emergency, you will never have to pull your money from your investment accounts in order to meet ends meet. So while investing in the stock market is a good habit to adopt in your financial life, it is never a good place to keep your emergency fund. Why? For one, any money that you keep in the stock market is very far from liquid. In other words, you would need to sell your investments in order to access your money, which can take a very long time. Not good. And two, it comes with the risk of losing money, which kind of defeats the purpose of why you build your emergency fund. If you're that kind of person who keep your money in a briefcase or in an envelope and keep it under your bed, as cool as it may sound, the worst idea to put your emergency fund is actually at home. By keeping a giant stack cash at home, you are actually putting your whole emergency fund or your entire emergency fund at risk. For one, at risk of being stolen or at risk of getting lost. Beyond that, if your house were to burn due to fire, which I probably don't need to remind you that that is a giant emergency, you would actually lose all your cash along with it. Sure, physical cash is liquid as money as it gets. However, it comes with quite a bit of risk. Just please put your money or put your emergency fund in a high-yield savings account, which on our next video will I be tackling about. Now that we understand where is the best and worst place that you can stash your emergency fund, where can we actually put now, or which bank offers the best interest rate that is suitable for our emergency fund? Here in Canada or even in the Philippines, there's what we call digital banks. And here in Canada, I always suggest the top two banks or top two digital banks that I always use. Number one is the EQ Bank, which is with Equitable Banking. And number two is the Tangerine account, which is with Scotia Bank. Way back home or way back in the Philippines, I always recommend the top 3 digital banks, which is first, CIMB, second, ING, and the third is the Como account. Now, I will link down below the sites that you can actually check in order to at least give yourself some information about the digital banks. Now that I have mentioned these digital banks, you may be wondering, are these safe since they are digitals and they contradict the usual traditional banks? Obviously, yes, because number one, here in Canada, they are CDIC insured, and number two, way back home or in the Philippines, they are PDIC insured, meaning they are backed by the government in times of loss or bankruptcy of the bank itself. And with that, I hope you understand where is the best and worst place that you can stash your emergency fund. If you like this video, click like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.